Today's adventure is in Paducah, Texas, where I think we increased the town's population by like 10%. I had a rifle trigger failure, 2 pistol trigger malfunctions, and a whole bunch of lessons learned.
All right, everyone, be cool. Be cool. It's cops. Crap. Let's get out of here. Stand by!
These events are largely open when it comes to equipment, so you can run whatever optic you want, whatever rifle you want, whatever pistol you want. You could have a very lightweight rifle like the one you see at the bottom, or a tactical rifle like the one you see at the top. Often what you'll find is that the leaders do have a certain setup that you see over and over again. And I definitely don't want to come across as an equipment snob, because I am the exact opposite. I firmly believe you can come out here with whatever cheap rifle, whatever cheap pistol, and end up learning a lot and being able to complete the course as long as your equipment holds up. But I have found that certain stuff really makes a shooting experience better, or you can reliably get through the whole course and engage all the targets. These events are the compromise of everything. So whatever you bring out needs to be the utility of being able to shoot close and shoot far. For example, some of the furthest shots I've shot were almost 700 yards to point blank. And you got to consider the weight, because you're running miles, and this competition had about 6.5 miles worth of traveling in it. It's got to be durable, because there's no chance to go back to your car and get some repairs. You're dragging your equipment through the unknowns. Often it's mud, water, sand, and it's got to be able to perform reliably for several hours at different stages. And then you got to consider your accessories, because you could be shooting prone from cramped areas. You could be standing and moving. You don't want stuff to snag up on you, and you want those accessories to be able to help you get through the stage. So over and over again, what do I see? The top 10 people usually have some sort of porting or compensation on their pistol, making those follow-up shots easier. And I know some people are worried about the night vision or blasting in your face. I've never seen that. I've shot this pistol specifically at night, and I don't get any damage to my night vision, and I'm doing just fine. Also, red dots. I'm not going to say which red dot you absolutely need, but I like the larger red dots. We can fight about enclosed or open. I've seen both succeed. I've seen both fail. I'll get in more into which red dots I do recommend in a future video. There you saw a trigger failure, the first one. Also, I will say, when getting ready to shoot your pistol and sighting it in, whatever you sight it into doesn't really matter a whole lot, just as long as you know where you're going to impact. But you should be able to hit a 100-yard target and like a full-size silhouette. There's just the pistols are not useless at 100 yards, and it's not uncommon to see 50, 80, 100-yard shots at running guns. The match director in this one was pretty generous or kind and not giving us too many obstacles. The one that he did give us was a sunken boat, which is just great. So now you are dealing with wet shoes through a several mile course, and you started off pretty early with the wet shoes. And I made the joke earlier about the cops are here. The local law enforcement actually was pretty heavily involved in making this event happen, which is really great, and can't thank them enough for making this one happen. Stage 3 has us roughly 3 miles in, and it had an extremely high DNF rate, or did not finish rate. So the almost 80% of the people that attempted this stage, they weren't able to complete engaging all the targets in the given time period. And for good reason, because it was very challenging. It was hard to gauge the distance of the targets. Most of them were roughly in the 200-yard mark, but the furthest ones being about 350, but they're smaller, so you need to make sure that you are compensating for your drop, as well as it forced you to shoot both left-handed and right-handed with your left eye and with your right eye. So you had to be able to shoot offhand, no matter what you did. The targets were also very hard to see and make out. It's a little bit easier watching post-production, but it was a very challenging stage. And I think this is where I get into, again, what do I see the top 10 shooters using a lot over and over again? It's LPVOs. The top is just dominated by LPVOs. I'm sorry if you're an ACOG fan, they don't hold up. Not that they're not durable. They are more than durable, and they're more than a capable enough optic, but they do not have the same adjustability of being able to come back out to 1x or maybe 1.5x, depending on your LPVO, all the way out to 6, 8, 10 magnification. The ACOGs are just slower in being able to find your situational awareness and then engaging the targets. You are stuck with that one magnification. Same thing with the red dots. You cannot get as precise, and you're stuck again with whatever your 1x is, and then whatever your magnifier is. It is not going to hold up. So my takeaway is LPVOs are the absolute king for the ultimate like rounded gun in order to engage something from 0 to some of the farthest shots I've had were 700 yards. So the LPVO is what I would recommend for all shooters. By the way, if the name run and gun is intimidating because you got to run, here's a bunch of walkers. Not everyone runs. Some people hike, some people run, walk. It's to whatever your ability is able to do. If you're going to win, you better be able to run. But the fun of these is don't worry about the running. Getting into rifle accessories. This one is very subjective, and I can just give you what I've seen and what my takeaway is from my experiences. The first would be a bipod. In general, I recommend having a bipod. And I don't mean that you have to have a nice one. You do need to have a durable one because it's going to get banged around. I use a Magpul, but I know some of the really top shooters, they have some of the really expensive bipods that they're $400, and also some of the top shooters have no bipod. So this one's really what you want to make of it. If you're going to have a bipod, I would recommend it being able to be slim and light. I don't see any reason to have a bulky attachment at the end of your rifle. It's just going to throw off your accuracy, and there's not enough stages where you are prone that you need it every time. I might use my bipod once or twice per outing, and that's really it. It's good enough for one stage, and all you need it to do is be good enough to give yourself a little bit of support. Could you maybe do that with an attachment on your magazine that you can rest on the ground? Sure, possibly. Maybe you can even find something in the environment to rest your gun against, and I would rather do that. But sometimes you're just stuck out in the open, in the prone, and I have found that the bipod has been beneficial enough in enough stages where I will continue to take one. Where I get a lot more opinionated is in your muzzle device. Whether you run a suppressor or a brake, both of them can work really well. What you need to have is a good recoil impulse. Muzzle brakes work better for that, and there's a good argument for a suppressor. And sometimes I do run a suppressor, but man, that muzzle brake is just really nice. Don't get the cheap ones or the ones that you can attach your suppressor onto and they kind of have a bunch of compromises. If you're going to get a brake, get a real committed brake. I'm going to pause a little bit on the equipment because I think this stage really exposes your ability to interact with your whole setup. And I guess I mean that in a very complete way. There was reloads, and there was left hand, right hand, switching from pistol to rifle, and it just created a scenario where a lot of people, even really good shooters, said that they ended up fumbling around. Now keep in mind, this is not something where you got to look at the whole course and kind of walk your mind through it. You really can't. You come up to this stage, you're introduced to it, and then you got to shoot it. And there's a lot of moving pieces to this. You're also tired. We're roughly 4.5 miles in at this point, and have been shooting and are trying to make time. So for example, I thought about reloading here, and I reloaded one of my magazines that was almost empty already. And then shooting the left-handed first and getting up. I really think that a lot of time I could have saved here would have been in just at home practicing pulling magazines out. If I had administrated my my chest rig better, where I had all of my full rifle mags on one side and knew really where they were, I just ended up messing up a lot of little things on this stage. The last part of this was where we had to shoot from really close, and you had to know your height over bore for these targets. The last 6 targets you were engaging from, I'm going to say, roughly 7 feet away, and you had to get through this tiny little 1-inch circle. That required me to hold about 20 MOA high in order to put through the circles. And you can see I had to adjust to figure out like where I was impacting. I had to keep bringing it up. And that was just, it was a neat little challenge to figure out how to adjust and make a precise shot from that close. It's a kind of an opposite of what I've tried to do with most of my training. Thank you for sticking with me this long, and I really want to continue to grow this and be a good source of information for just shooting techniques in general, but specifically being able to show off these running guns, these events, show the appreciation to the match directors and the ROs that volunteer their time for this. I am for the most part, a one-man camera show. I do all my own editing, and then I gotta shoot. And if you can just give me a like, give me a comment down below of what you like, what you don't like, how I can make these things better, and what you want to see more of, or maybe I'm spending too much time showing you things that you don't like. So any feedback, and then also if you have someone that you think would enjoy one of these events, please send these videos to them. Almost every time I go to a running gun now, I hear, oh, I came to this because I saw your video and I was interested, and this is how I found it. So it's really fun to be able to hear things like that. Stage 6 was the one that beat up almost everybody. It was an 88% did not complete rate, and you'll see why in just a moment. For me, I really felt like I was going to be able to complete it on time, and then I ended up with a trigger failure. You're going to see that in just a little bit. The first few shots are not too hard because you're going off of a fairly stable platform. We end up moving to this ring that is swaying and moving, and I realize there's a lot of controversy within the running guns on if that is a good thing or not. I think the argument that you don't run into that a whole lot in the real world is a completely valid argument. The argument that this is a good skill to be able to learn, to be able to time your shot as your reticle is going past it, I also think that is a great argument. And then finally, if you've ever shot out of an aerial vehicle or just a buggy that just going across the ground, you realize how hard it is to be able to shoot when things are constantly moving and you have to be able to time those shots. And so I think this is a very applicable skill. There's a lot of technique in how to do it when you're hanging off of a ring or shooting through a tire, and I don't know how realistic it is, but it's definitely a challenge. Regardless, I, at this point, began fighting this trigger failure. What happened was, as I would shoot, my gun would cycle properly and load in the next round, and my trigger did not reset. So I had to then manually pull back the charging handle to reset the trigger. When that was happening, I was also ejecting a live round. So I'm burning through my ammo super quick, as well as eating up a lot of time trying to, instead of taking my next shot, lean back, use my charging handle, and get back down onto target. And it just basically made this stage, it was too difficult for me now at this point. So I did not complete this stage. And what I ended up taking away from this was to make sure that you have a reliable trigger. I think that the Rise triggers that I was shooting, I think they're fine. I've actually very much enjoyed my Rise trigger up until this point, but it failed. Rise has since gotten back to me. They've given me a troubleshooting technique. I haven't had time to sit down and do it, but I also bought a Geisley trigger in hopes that I will not run into this sort of issue again.
Yeah. Hit!
65. Hit it! Fine.
What the world? Was I ejecting good
Yeah.
ammo?
Fuck yeah. Bye. Come on.
This stage was definitely a reminder that it's a sport and we're out there for the adventure and the fun of it. And I don't know what to think of it still. There's parts of it that really feel like it belongs to the sport to me, and there's parts that don't. This was a stage where you were supposed to be able to use any sort of weapon. As you can see, I can actually hit things with a knife, but not so much stick it into the board. Same with these hatchets. I've never been good at the axe throwing thing. I've gotten lucky a few times. I prefer stages where I get to use my gear and test my abilities with my stuff, but I mean, battlefield pickups are a real thing. I did get this slingshot, which was kind of fun. I do like a little bit later when we get into the shotgun and the pistol. That was more entertaining for me. I definitely am not good at throwing a spear. And this is a little close for an open field grenade throw, but I was able to make that one in the box as well.
You're gonna load the shotgun, take one shot at the steel on the left. All right, now pick a pouch, open it, load the pistol, shoot the target on the right.
Whoa!
Nice. All right, you're done.
What is fun is being able to adapt to the stage. I've never seen that shotgun before, that pistol before, and then be able to quickly adjust to them, use them while on the clock. Also, there's some ladies here on the course, and ladies, please feel welcome to join these. There are more and more all the time, and sometimes kids or wives will just come along with their significant other and go through the course just for fun, and sometimes they go to shoot it together. So it's really a family event if you want it to be. Also, if you're not from America, that is not a problem either. We meet people from all over the world.
Where'd you say you were from again? The Philippines. From the Philippines. But you're a veteran, right? Yeah. All right. First time out? Yeah. What's your name? Victor. Victor. Okay, I'm going to look you up then, too. Philippines! Can I shout out? Do it. Shout out to class 29-10 Max Slap. 29-10. Ahoo, ahoo! Good luck, buddy. Thank you. Yeah.